Arsenault, is that you?
There, I think I got it. All right, cool. Good. I hit the record button and I got it working. All right, I'm here. It's just me, myself, and I, except for one other person who has been, how should we say, dragged in from outside. I'm here with Rob Arsenault of weathermytrains.com.
Outstanding.
So now, Rob, you've listened to a lot of our podcasts, have you not?
I have pretty much listened to every podcast, in fact.
And you were the guest on episode 106.
Yes.
And I remember thinking to myself when I was done, I was thinking, now this is a guy I'm going to talk to on a semi-regular basis because he's got lots and lots of stuff to talk about and to tell, and he talks a lot, which is good, saves me talking. Yeah. And so we did another podcast. And two things happened. One, I got mad at you because you wouldn't tell me all your secrets. And the other one was, I'm using new software, and I knew eventually somewhere along the lines I'd screw it up. So what happened was I ended up with your side of the podcast, but nobody else.
Oh.
So what it was a whole lot of you talking with pauses when I would say something or somebody else would say something, then it would be you talking again. Which didn't really make for that. I thought to myself, when my buddy Morgan Pavia, who's a border agent for the United States, driving along the border there and between Arizona and Mexico, and he's driving along listening to it, it'd be kind of like it wouldn't be that interesting because it'd only be you talking.
I wouldn't think.
Yeah. Or my buddy Joe Desmond, who's a police officer in New Jersey, it'd be the same for him.
I just listened to his podcast.
Oh, did you?
I did. I enjoyed it a lot. And I've gone and looked at a couple of his videos, too.
I know, eh? That's what happens with the podcast is people become interested in the people they listen to, and it's bringing us, we're making a community here,
Absolutely. There's no question in my mind about that at all.
I know. It's pretty cool. So, here's my beef with you.
Okay.
You're too interesting for one guy.
I don't know about that.
Well, that's the beauty of having your own podcast. I get to be the guy that decides.
Okay. So, I know I'm blabby. I get that.
Well, that's blabby is good because that's what I am. Except you're also. I've been blown. I was the first time I don't even know how I found out about you. But when I went to your website, I was blown away. Your website is weathermytrains.com.
Correct.
So then we talked for about an hour and a half, and we talked about a lot of cool subjects. And then we got talking about, you didn't want to say stuff about certain manufacturers, which I agreed with. But then I got all, what's a nice word that you can say on the podcast? I got all, that word that you use when you go to the bathroom. I got
jinkity janked?
Yeah, I got all jinkity janked. Yeah. And I had decided I was going to post it anyways, but then I guess the gods interfered and went, no, you don't want to do that. So we're right back. So then I was thinking about it. You know what? You're the kind of guy where I don't need. It's fun to have other people, but because I have a lot of questions, and we're comfortable with each other. That's the other great thing about this podcast. You meet people and then you become friends. Mm-hmm. I think you and I by ourselves could fill up a fair amount of airtime.
I think we could.
I have a ton of questions. And also remember, the number one rule about the podcast and about life in general is we'd all be a lot happier if we just did it Lionel's way.
That's right. Yeah. The only concern I have with just you and I in the podcast, of course, is I don't have Bruce to pull me out of the jelly.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm a little extra nervous, but it'll be fine.
Don't be nervous. You know what? You don't want to be nervous because people really enjoy this, and you're doing people a favor. We're doing people not a favor, but that sounds very snotty. But people enjoy the fact that we're taking the time to talk about the hobby in a relaxed manner.
Right. And I don't have a YouTube channel, so a lot of people that have done business with me regularly over the past couple of years, it's the first time for many of them that they even hear my voice.
Well,
So I
yeah,
thought it was kind of neat. One of my customers, a new customer, in fact, in London, England, told me that he had just listened to Podcast 106 just for kicks, and he enjoyed it.
Well, see, now that is the very first point that we're going to argue about.
Okay.
We're basically going to have a heated discussion about this. Because I think, personally, I think it's fascinating that you've got customers all over the world.
Oh, me too. I love it. It's exciting.
It is.
And it means I get to eat 3 meals a day most of the time.
Yeah.
Which is nice too.
Yeah, but like today or yesterday or the day before, you sent me a photo of a covered hopper. Yep. And I sent a message back to you, and I said, "Oh, cool. Are you going to weather that, or whatever?" And then you said to me, "Oh, well, it's already gone to Switzerland."
That's right. Yeah, I have another new customer in Switzerland. I have 3 in Switzerland now.
3 in Switzerland alone.
Staggering.
I mean, it is staggering. Like, let's not. I don't want to blow past this because I'm staggered about how many countries listen to the podcast, and I think we both agree that social media is just going to make this hobby explode.
Yes, it is. There's no question about it. If I didn't have Facebook, this wouldn't have gone anywhere for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And back just quickly on the tagging issue of the cars, the thing that I found most flattering and cool was the fact that the customer sent me actually a train of 16 of those American Limited fracking sand hoppers, and 2 of them were the Halliburton pink ones. And he asked me to hand tag his daughter's names on them.
Wow.
So I thought that was kind of neat. That was kind of an honor for me that he's going to have those and he's going to keep them forever. So I did everything I could to make them as good as I could.
Sure. And where could we have you got any photos of them up on your website yet?
No, but they're going to be going up by the time people listen to this.
Okay.
They're on Facebook now. Actually, quite frankly, I forgot to put them on my website. I just put some potash cars that I did for a new customer in St. Louis, Missouri, just up there just moments ago, in fact.
So would it be Weather My Trains on Facebook as well?
Yes, facebook.com/Weather My Trains, and they will be there.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to see if I can do this.
Absolutely.
Oh, there it is. I did it. Okay, you see, what I want to do, what I have in mind is that I want you to be a semi-regular on the show, and we're not necessarily going to chew up an hour and a half every time because...
Sure.
But, sometimes, most of the podcasts are about an hour and a half long, but I find it pretty interesting when we have like 45 minutes with one person and 45 minutes with another. But we got a lot of catching up to do. But, so now I'm on your Facebook page and I'm scrolling down. How far would I have to scroll down to see those cars that we're talking about?
Not far. I just sent them away the other day, in fact. So you'll see first go on at the moment, you'll see the CN cars, then you'll see some BNSF Tier 4 GEVOs from scaletrains.com. And just below that, the next post, you'll see the 16 hoppers. And then you'll see Alice and Hannah on the pink ones.
Right, yes. And the other thing that's going to work well with us talking is I don't know anything and you seem to know everything, which is perfect.
I try.
I have no problem being the dim-witted brother. I have zero problem being. That is like my favorite thing. So these Halliburton, these pink cars, give me a little bit about what's the deal with those.
I thought, like most people think at one point, that they were related to somehow breast cancer, but apparently they're not. Someone, I don't know who, but someone straightened me out one day and informed me that the pink cars were designated only to carry a certain type of sand, and no other type of sand is supposed to go in those cars. And the pink cars makes it obvious that you can only put that type of product in that car. Wow. That's what I've been told.
And Halliburton, who are they? Do we know?
I believe they're a large a drilling company.
Okay. Oh yeah, right. That's right. Halliburton Oil or something. Or,
Yeah, a
yeah.
friend of mine. Yeah, I don't know if they're an oil company or a drilling company, but a friend of mine is a machinist in Manitoba, and he has made product for them, large drill bits for them for their drilling rigs. But I don't really know any more than that.
Right. Okay. So on your Facebook page, it's the post from October 22nd at 6:32 p.m. So if you look there, you'll go there, and there's also a link you've got up there from American Limited Models. So who are these made by in scale? Like these actual cars? Who are they? Whose cars are they?
These cars are HO scale cars, and they're made by a company called American Limited Models, as you see there, and as you've mentioned. They are a 3,281 twin bay covered hopper. And I'm particularly attracted to these cars because these are cars that I see on the CN main line any day of the week. And in just about any mixed manifest train, there always seems to be large, long cuts of these cars. And there are some trains, I think, that are solid unit trains of these fracking sand cars.
All right. So that's another good point. First, we'll make sure we let everybody know that you live in Edmonton, Alberta.
Yes.
Which is, a couple hours north of Calgary?
About 3.5.
And we feel fairly confident, I believe, during our first discussion on episode 106, we felt fairly confident that Wayne Gretzky no longer played for the Edmonton Oilers.
Extremely confident of that.
All right. But now it's Connor McDavid.
Yes.
I've never heard of American Limited Models.
I hadn't either, to be totally honest with you. Somebody gave me some of the weather, and I thought they were really neat. I can tell you from my observation, having weathered 30 or 40 of these cars, that from my experience, they are beautiful cars. I would love to have a long string of them, but I'm a bit of a snob in that I want cars in the road names that I see here. So I don't have a large fleet of these cars. I have a couple, but I'm waiting to see what happens in the next release to see if they'll do road names that I see in Alberta.
I don't see on their website. So the website is AmericanLimitedModels.com.
Right.
I have never. I'm telling you, this hobby is massive.
And I'll tell you that is one beautiful freight car. They have done a superb job with it, in my view.
Okay, and their what do you call it? Area code is 970. I wonder where that is.
Not sure. And I know they're very reasonably priced. They're somewhere between 40 and 50 Canadian dollars.
Okay.
So the price point's excellent. They track well. They look great. You know, the weight is nice. Yeah, really nice cars.
Colorado.
Colorado. There you go.
Yeah, somewhere in 970 is the area code serving most of western and northern parts of Colorado.
Yeah. And a while back, my contact at Intermountain, who's no longer there, unfortunately, because of the factory closure, had indicated that Intermountain was distributing those cars on behalf of American Limited. So I was excited about the possibility to bring those in as a dealer and reseller, and rather than sell them as weathered models. But at my last contact with the company, it looked like that wasn't happening in the near future. So I'm not sure what to think about the availability of these cars in the short term, anyway.
So,
but I think the industry's a little bit in turmoil still. They're in recovery mode, so we'll have to be patient and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm probably going to broadcast this sometime in November, I believe, November of 2018. Okay. Probably around the middle of November. But so factory closure of Intermountain. Am I behind the times? Am I behind the news?
There's one of the factories in China called Afatech.
Oh yeah, that one. Okay, I see what you're saying. Right? Yeah,
so,
yeah.
And they were making product for Intermountain and Bowser and several other companies, Fox Valley Models and Atlas. So I understand Atlas has other factories.
Yeah.
But I think they've hit bottom, and now they're ascending again back to production levels. They found some of them, or if not all, have found new production facilities. I know Intermountain is moving along, and I have had one discussion with Lee English from Bowser, and things are progressing there as well. He's recovered some of his tooling, and things are looking a little better. So we just have to be patient
So pretty quickly, things are moving
Mm.
along. Because as of we speak right now, it's only been what, a couple of months max, maybe. It was that what happened in July, didn't it? First of August.
Um, yeah, I think that's about the time frame. It's a bit of a jolt,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah. So unfortunately, model railroaders never seem to tire of new release announcements, and that has slowed down a little bit this summer, and it's affected all of us. And I think, in my view, I could be wrong, but I think it's a bit of an unprecedented event in the model railroad industry. And but I'm highly confident that people are going to recover based on little bits of information that I have. And it looks like Bowser has recently gotten a container of new freight cars from China,
Oh,
some box cars and some sort of 60s and 70s era cars, 40-foot type cars.
okay.
So that's a good sign.
All right. So I found out now. I've done some research on my own,
Hmm.
and it's in Durango, Colorado.
Okay.
And American Models is a division of the San Juan Car Company, which is owned by and directed by Bob Staat, Staat,
Okay.
who's apparently a member of the Model Railroad Hall of Fame.
Hmm. I tried to contact the company, about dealership inquiry and things like that, but don't have too many responses. So
Okay. Well, there might.
not sure what's going on there.
Yeah, there might be there might. Who know? I've tried to contact a few people about being interviewed, and they don't. But I think you know what? I think I think part of that problem, and I would love to hear your opinion on this. I think we already basically agree, but I bet you part of that problem is all of a sudden people are being inundated with requests and stuff because all of a sudden the hobby's exploding. You know,
It is, um, the thing that impresses me most, I think, unlike when I was young, is today you can drive to the hobby shop, and on your way to the hobby shop, you can see a locomotive or a freight car, and when you get to the hobby shop, that freight car is available on the shelf, or potentially.
yeah,
That's really something. Like a tier 4 for Intermountain scale trains, you know, the things were a year old, and then next thing you know, we had them in plastic. And back in the day, 20 years ago, if you wanted a late model diesel, you had to rely on a brass model from Overland.
yes,
The
yeah.
fact that they can mass produce quantities, as soon as a year to 2 years or whatever after the mainline locomotive comes out in real life is just astounding to me. And it's nice to see. I see it as a good thing. It means manufacturers are they're responsive to what's happening in the real world, and it means that they understand that what many modelers want is what they see today. I know that's not always the case. People don't want steam and 60s and 70s transition era stuff, but it's pretty cool that you could have a state of the art locomotive on your layout that really is an exact replica of the real one.
Okay, yeah, and okay, this is a question I want to ask you because this one I want to ask, and even if you're going to get mad at me for asking you, I'm not going to say. I'm still going to forge ahead and ask you because I think this is an important question from what we were talking about before, and
Yep.
I thought you coined the phrase perfectly was
Okay.
detail threshold.
Right. Yeah.
Like I kind of think to myself, when I was at the NMRA convention in Kansas City, and I'm looking at or like any of these locomotive manufacturers, Scale Trains, Intermountain, Athearn, Bowser. I mean, you're thinking, what could they do next?
Hmm. Well, uh, LED lighting is one hot button topic today.
Right.
Athearn seems to have gone in that direction, and now another thing that Athearn has done for us is um, they've they've designed their models now with LED lighting and a 21 pin motherboard. So you can use pretty much any manufacturer you want. I know Soundtrack Tsunami has a 21 pin decoder, and DSU has a 21 MTC decoder. So it's great that way to give us a little bit of choice in our models without having to gut the thing to put DCC in. That's nice. It makes it easier to upgrade a DC model.
Yep. Uh,
So that's
okay.
pretty cool.
So your job tonight is going to be exactly what is the 21 pin? Like it used to be what, an 8-pin connector?
They still have an 8. They have lots of different styles of decoders. They have one decoder Well, I can speak only about ESU because I'm an ESU dealer. I don't sell the other brands, but I can tell you that ESU has an 8-pin decoder. They have a decoder with a wiring harness that has an 8-pin plug. But I'm pretty sure TCS and Soundtracks they have similar decoders.
But why would some decoders have 8 pins and some have 21 pins?
Well, I think our motherboard design has evolved over the last 10 years or so.
Right.
So I think
So it's just
the
basically
21 well the 21 pin decoder allows for a greater number of function outfits for the outputs for the locomotive. So you can have
okay.
headlights and rear headlights and ditch lights and strobe lights or whatever. My weapon of choice is the lock sound select direct because I have lots of auxiliary outputs and I can wire up ditch lights on the front porch or the back porch, whatever people want. I have lots of extra outputs that I can use during an install job.
Okay, so basically what it does is it just gives the decoder the opportunity to do way more functions
More
on the
yeah,
on the locomotive.
more bells and whistles. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of that I think is driven by the consumer because the consumers when we try to tie in the point here we talk about detail threshold. A lot of consumers are now wanting and they've already seen in some cases walkway lights in the ends of locomotives. I think some people are starting to put in step lights. They're putting in truck lights. So if you're going to do that, you have to have a decoder that will support that many different function outputs. And the only way to do that is with a higher end decoder.
Right.
So that's pretty much driven these companies to produce a better product with more functionality.
Yeah. Okay.
At greater cost, I might add, of course. But I guess to too many people, it's worth it.
Well,
Some
sure.
people still use non-sound decoders, which is also fine.
Yeah, well, and the thing of it is too. I mean, it's like we talked in originally when we talked about, your business of weathering cars and locomotives. For some people, they don't have the time or the desire, and they're just as happy to hire somebody out and have them do it for them. So, it's for some people they want the higher end decoder. That's okay. I think people
Yep.
get too hung up in this hobby about some people spend more money than other people.
Well, I also think, um, and just before I move on, one of my potential customers who happens to live in South Africa.
Oh, come
That
on. Well, all right, we're gonna have to talk about that
you,
too.
you, you, you may know him. Um, a lot of the things I'm hearing is not just about time and availability. A lot of people are telling me that they feel, in their opinion, that I have proven my worth and I have proven that I can weather a locomotive or a freight car lightly or more heavily or extremely heavily, like some of the potash cars that have heavy weathering and rust on them.
Hmm.
And they just don't feel comfortable attempting that. So I've recently had an exchange yesterday, in fact, with a potential customer in South Africa, and he says I've got some N scale stuff, I got some BNSF stuff, and after seeing I weathered a couple of scale trains, BNSF Tier 4 GVOs, he said I'm just about ready to take the plunge here. So he's making a plan, and I told him I'd work with him, and we could make it happen if that's what he wanted to do. And today I had an exchange with a customer in Rochelle, Illinois, and it was an interesting one. It caught me by surprise because I just sent him some HO scale equipment last month, and I'm doing some more work for him tomorrow, in fact. And he mentioned that he's got several pieces of O scale brass that he wants to get weathered. And the thread this week and last week seems to be people do not have the nerve to attempt weathering on their models, and that's why they're talking to me because they are confident that I won't hurt their models
All right.
because they've seen so many different varieties of weathering and levels of weathering that I've done that they're comfortable that I will listen to them and I will give them what they ask me for.
Well, and everybody's always looking for somebody that's good at their service. I have a fella that I occasionally turn to that helps me with the podcast, and rather than sit for hours trying to figure something out, he charges a consulting fee of $85 an hour, and I just call him up. His name and every once in a while, and I say, okay, I can't figure this out or I can't figure that, and we spend it. And of course, he always ends up giving me more than my hour, but we end up, and it's so much faster the process of just having him do it because he knows the stuff.
Yeah, nobody knows everything. I don't even know everything, of course.
Yeah,
So, I'm always, I watch videos online. I consult with my airbrush supplier. I go to the art store. I talk to them. I tell them I'm looking for a product. The product, this is what I'm using. It's not performing the way I want it to work. Because I'm always trying to be uncomfortable. I'm always trying to develop professionally as well. Because if you're not uncomfortable and you're not trying to solve a problem, like seriously, if you're not trying to solve an artistic problem in my line of business, you get complacent, you get bored, and you just give it up. And I don't want to do that. I have my days like everybody else. This is a job for me, but it's a job that I like, and I want to keep growing, and I want to get better. And that's one of the reasons why I accept these little challenges. Like, can you paint my girls' names on the freight cars?
exactly.
So, sure, give it a try. Like the worst case scenario, he doesn't like it, and I tell him, like, feel free to reject this. If you don't like it, I can get it off, and I will do it again, like no extra charge, because you have to be happy. I want you to come back. I don't want you getting in the car and saying, "Oh, a guy wrecked my car."
Well, yeah, and exactly as
Yeah.
your point of always learning, it's like if you have a podcast and there's a guy you want to interview that has people all over the world, and you got to drag it out of him about that. It's like that's a challenge.
And these cars, strangely enough, I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but these 16 are gone to Switzerland. They left this week, in fact. So I'm waiting for feedback that they're there, and hopefully he's happy. I got some great feedback today from a customer in Wisconsin, and he got a brass CN-944 CWL that I weathered recently with a really heavily faded cab down to pink. The top coat's gone and the paint's faded, and he's very pleased. And some people think, "Oh, you destroyed the model," but that's pretty much what they're looking like today. And
Well,
he is thrilled from all indications, anyway.
is that the brass one? The
Yeah, the 2511 that I weathered on the 18th of October,
uh,
11:10 p.m. your time, I suppose.
and I'm looking on it on your actual website, and it's like, holy mackerel!
Yeah,
Like
it's
that would
it's
that would
it's
scare that would scare
it's
me.
scary.
It
Well, it's
would
scary
be.
to do. Like you pull this brand new brass model out of the box, and like they only made like 30 of these things, and you got to silence that little voice in your head that says, "Don't screw this up."
Yeah.
You can shut the doors if you screw this thing up because you're done.
Okay.
Like the guy that tightens the bolts on the rotor blade on the helicopter.
Yeah.
Don't think about the consequences. Just do the job.
Okay. See. Now this is where it's going to be like I've decided my task is to ride this bronc around the corral until I get him calmed down. So so that you said they only made. So this is the Overland models,
Yep.
brass CN-944,
Right.
and you say they only made 30 of these?
Something like that. It's a really low number of each number, 30 or 40 worldwide.
Like
Like
30? Like you mean 30 of the actual number?
yeah, like 20 or 30 of 2511 and 20 or 30 of 2508. They made a couple of different ones.
Wow.
If you're on the website, if you're looking at the 2511, just above that you'll see a brass -8, and just above that you'll see another brass -9 2508.
Yeah.
So it's a totally different weather job, and the reason it does is because the owner of this one, who's a different gentleman, has another brass -9 that I also heavily weathered for him. So
Okay.
he wanted one. He wanted a little contrast.
All right. Well, I'm not letting you get off of this. Let's just
Okay.
one subject at a time. So what do you know of the fact that they only made like 60 of these? Like, how would they? I wonder how would they? See, this is going to be an interesting question. You wear me out, buddy. Uh, how would this company, Overland Models, only make 60 of these locomotives? Would they? What do you think they sell for retail?
If I recall correctly, when they were first released, they were around $1,100. I
Wow.
might be wrong on that, but they were around $1,100. When I used to have a collection of 17 brass locomotives myself, but I didn't have any that were factory painted. I bought them unpainted and painted them myself. And I was buying them unpainted for $450 and such.
Okay. See, I'm
So
complete. I'm completely ignorant on brass because
yeah.
I thought it had kind of gone the way of the dodo bird, and apparently
Well, it
it's
has. It has in that Overland has ceased production of brass models, but there are still new brass models being made by other companies. I'm not really all that intimately familiar with them. The only one I've ever owned is Overland. Um,
yes.
but they're pricey, but they're very exclusive. They're very high end collector model.
I think our friend Fred Hill, who I think he owns, I think it's called Coachard Models. Hang on, let me see. I'm going to
That
do
rings a
some.
bell. Yep, that rings a bell.
Yes, he does. He still manufactures HO scale brass
Hmm.
passenger cars, and he has a thriving business doing that.
And I will be watching, like probably many other people, to see if some unique modern diesels might be offered by some of these companies. And if that happens, I'm sure these companies will get our attention.
Okay, so now we're going to go back to this one, the really faded one that scares me just looking at it. How did so if everybody goes to so what you were looking at it on your Facebook page? What's the date on that?
I've got the website up,
All right, and yeah, me too. Okay,
and I
good,
just did it like a week or two ago, so I remember everything about it. So you can
perfect.
ask me questions. Yeah, sure. You can ask me any questions.
All right, how far? Who do you think's going to win the Stanley Cup?
Any questions about this model? Did I
Oh,
mention I'm not a hockey fan? Because one of the things I have no time, buddy.
yeah, exactly. How many how many hours a day do you work on weathering models?
It varies, but I have worked. I have I have gotten up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I have worked with breaks until sometimes 10 o'clock at night. I work as long as I have the energy. After a couple of days of that, I get pretty tired, so I might take a day off and go rail fanning and take my trusty new Nikon and go rail fanning and get some reference material, which is also great. And that really charges my batteries because there are days that I sort of, Monday morning comes sometime and I go to the basement and I work and I say, why am I doing this?
Right.
And, like everybody else. And I need to be re-energized. And when I get back trackside, you know, the pupils dilate, the pulse races when the train comes, and you get the good shot, and you say, that's why I'm doing this again. Because I'm trying to recapture that excitement in HO scale for
Well,
the guy who's going to hit that. And I remind myself
yeah.
what the reaction might be if I do this right when the guy opens the box.
I
And I'm
think
hoping for the reaction that I got today for my customer in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think the thing that I have just kind of registered in my brain, and I don't think it's yet registered in your brain. I think in a while you're going to be glad you met me. In a few.
I'm already glad I met you, Lionel. Like I have read all your articles. Like from my mind, you're a big superstar in the model railroad world. I have actually looked at every article you've ever. I remember you telling people how to paint handrails yellow with a toothpick. I
Yeah,
I read that article.
exactly. But
Absolutely.
but I think the service I'm going to do for the hobby now is I'm going to extract from you the feel. I am excited to have met you, and I'm excited that this latest recording that we did went in the tank because I don't feel like I did a very good job extracting from you the information. You are like I said, you're like a wild bronco running around the corral, and it's kind of like my job.
Well, like you, Lionel, and like many people, I'm very passionate about trains. I'm very passionate about model trains and real trains, and I'm passionate about rail photography. And I think one of the reasons of my success is because my customers know that I share their passion. I get them. They don't have to explain to me why they like trains.
Ah,
They
that's
don't
a good
have to
point.
explain to me what they're after, because I know what they're after. If
Ah,
I capture that feeling that I get when I'm trackside on their model train, they're always happy. That's been my experience, and that's what I'm trying to do.
okay. Well, we're going to stick with this crazy faded one. What number is it? 25.
2511.
All right. So, first question I want to get back. You know what it is? You're trying to trick me. You're trying to get me off on a different topic when
No,
before I'm
no.
finished my first topic. So, I wanted to ask you. You say you work long and hard some days. So it's like, how will I ask this question? Is it? It's not the word tedious. It's not the word tedious. I would think. I would think that it's like sometimes you almost have to force yourself to stop in order to do a good job because you can kind of keep going when you know you're too tired or too stressed out.
That's right. Um, I have learned in multiple decades of making fine art, I have learned when I have to stop. And that is an important bit of knowledge that you have to have. You have to know where your limits are. You have to know when you are redlining
Yeah.
or when your tank is empty or whatever metaphor you want to use. Because if you make a mistake when you're tired and you try to fix it, that mistake is going to get worse. And you have to know when to stop. And part of being a professional is it's not just about getting paid to do work, but part of being a professional is understanding your limits, making a plan so you can execute your artistic work according to your plan, knowing you're going to make a mistake, identifying what those mistakes likely might be, and having a bit of a plan to say, if that happens, no big deal. Because I always have a backup button. Probably 99% of the time, I can back up. And I
Right.
can fix that mistake and go. And a trained professional knows when he or she is making a mistake.
Yeah.
And that's a big one. Sometimes, like, not everybody knows when they're making a mistake. And the more experience you get, the more likely you're going to detect that error early in the process, as opposed to at the end. And
Right.
say, oops.
So, I was going to say before you tried to distract me. I was going to say when you say you take some days off. I was talking to my friend Ron Marsh, who he has a YouTube channel called Ron's Trains and Things, and he has.
I watch him all the time.
I
I
know.
really like that YouTube channel.
I know he does a great job, and he's like you. I don't think he realizes how good a job he's doing. And he said we were talking a couple or 3 weeks ago, and he said he hit a wall, and for like 2 weeks he just stopped, which started to make me relieved because most of the time I do pretty good keeping up with the podcast because most of the time I like it, but every once in a while I'm kind of like, okay, I've had enough of this for a while.
Yep. I think everybody does that. And it's too much. The expression, you can get too much of a good thing. It's true.
Yeah,
Like I should have been, one guy sends me, or he buys 14 or 15 freight cars, and I should be excited that I'm going to get to weather 14 or 15 freight cars for the guy.
right.
But then there's a little bit of me says, oh man, I've got to weather 15 of these things.
Yeah, yeah,
And they're all the same type. It's a unit train. So, you got to really police your thoughts, and you got to stay focused and break it up into manageable chunks. Maybe do 8 or 4
right.
and then do something else and then do 4 more.
Yeah,
So
so
at the end of the day, they're all weathered to the same level, and they all look. You can't look at one and say, "Oh, that's the first one he did, or that's the last one he did." And there's one thing that's really important to me personally: when you look at a piece of a model, a piece that I've weathered, you should not be able to tell where I started, where I finished, or where I may have gotten bored, or hopefully where I made a mistake. And let's be clear: I make mistakes all the time. I just know how to fix them. But
uh,
I make mistakes very regularly, and that's fine. That's part of the growth process.
can you give us an idea of a mistake that you made recently that you were able to fix? Do you mind telling us? Do you mind if
No,
I
I
ask?
don't mind.
Do you
No,
mind if
I
I
don't.
ask?
No, I don't mind.
Okay.
I dumped an entire bottle of black paint on a good friend's model.
Holy
An,
mackerel!
an, an entire bottle,
Oh
all
man!
roof all over the side, and because I was a little bit sleepy. But that's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. I had it there because I was weathering it. It was sort of a heavy weather job. It was a Canadian Pacific model, and it's one of those things where you keep calm and turn lemons into lemonade. And when I was done cleaning it all up and fixing it the way I wanted it, I just pushed the paint around and I did what I wanted to do. And I thought, that looks awesome. And I wouldn't have achieved that effect hadn't I had that little happy little accident, to quote Bob Ross. So just because, something goes wrong with a little bit of paint, it's not a reason to freak out. In my case, it's one of the reasons I prefer acrylic paint because I can back up.
Okay,
But
how
if
do
you
you?
use enamels, it's not so good. I just use the thinner for the paint and I get it off of there.
So okay, so acrylics. So do you pretty much exclusively use acrylics?
Yes. And in the earlier podcast, several months, 6 or 7 months ago, whenever it was, we talked about a mixed media approach.
Right.
And really, at this point in the game, all I'm using are my acrylics. I still, I have my pan pastels, but I'm very messy with them, and I get them all over everything. I get them all over my hands and out my nose, and it's not what I want for me personally. So I'm not. I wasn't a kid that played with mud pies.
Right.
I was a kid that was always clean, kept my hands clean and stuff. So weathering is kind of like my mud pies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get messy later in life, and that's why a lot of people ask me to custom paint models, and I always say no. I don't want to do it because it's too precise. Weathering for me is play. So there are other people who are very competent in custom painting, and I leave it to them. And weathering is not an exact science, and that's why I like it. I get to play.
Okay. And do you have anybody in particular that you recommend? Like if somebody says, "Will you paint this model?" And do you recommend a particular or 3 or 4 different guys? Or
Well, that's the challenge, and I don't want to say their names online because sometimes they say yes and sometimes they say no. So if somebody asks me, I'll typically go to the person and say, "Look, I got a customer that's asking me for this. Is this a job you're willing to do?" And if he says yes, then I say, "Okay, here's his contact information. I'll share yours. You guys talk it over." And as luck would have it, one of these guys lives 45 minutes from me.
okay.
So one of my customers actually lives in Australia, and he sent me a brass hot metal. I'm not sure what it is. It's a bottle car, a slag
Right.
car,
Right.
from like a blast furnace or
Right.
whatever. And he wants it painted. And quite frankly, I've been staring at this thing, and I just don't feel like I have the nerve to do this. So, I reached out to my friend just up the street there, and I said, "Look, potential project here." And I happen to know, I know him well. I trust him. I've known him for years, and his work is meticulous. His custom painting is great. Um, so I asked him, I said, "I've got this potential job. Are you interested?" He said, "Oh, you betcha." And 2 months ago, he said he wasn't doing any more work for anybody, but now he's interested. So, I like to keep the door open.
Yeah.
But I don't like to share the guy's name right away until I contact him because I never know where people's headspace is
Right.
on a topic. It changes with time.
So that's where you and I are eventually going to come to blows on that.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
so I'm
but
sorry. I'm sorry, but I mean, I may one day jump on a plane, fly out to Edmonton, and just beat you to death with a wet noodle.
well, that's fine. We'll go rail fanning too.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. First, we'll
and we'll
go
have
rail fanning.
and we'll have to then you can beat me with a noodle. There's so many places to go rail fanning here. It'd be
All right.
awesome.
Well, your assignment between this podcast and the next time we talk will be to pick a couple of guys that you recommend for painting because people are sitting on the edge of their seat going, "Give me a hint. Give me a hint. I need something
Well,
painted."
there's one guy. I don't think he'll mind if I mention his name online. Uh, Dan Darnell, and he works he's one of the project managers at Rapido Trains, one of the big
Yes.
guys there. So he's kind of one of the big wigs at Rapido, but he does outstanding custom painting.
Okay. Well, that's interesting.
He paints all their factory models, right? So when you see a pre-production painted sample um, for Rapido before they go into production, Dan painted it, and I have no idea how he does it. I have no idea how he masks off the demarcation line between the black and the red. He is quite simply, my view, the
Oh,
best CN painter I've ever seen.
okay. Cool. So that's Dan Darnell, and I know Dan. I've met Dan. Dan and I are acquaintances, and next time you're talking to him, will you tell him to apologize to Jason Schron for me? Because I've yet to interview Jason about Rapido Trains here on the old podcast, and I'm thinking, and he only lives an hour from me, and his business is only an hour from me, and I'm thinking he's sitting there going, "Why is Lionel not interviewing me?"
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and I think Jason is very engaging,
He
and
is.
he's a guy that I never get tired of listening to. So by all means, I hope you will. I hope you will
I
contact
will. I will.
him.
He's
Will
on the
accept your.
list. And the other thing is, I got to say about Jason and Rapido Trains is I have a little foundation where I raise money for Princess Margaret Hospital, and he gave a very generous donation for the 2018 effort, and it's an opportunity to publicly thank him for that, as did Fast Track. So I know that they're. I know I got to get down there, and so next time you're talking to Dan, will you tell him just Lionel says he's sorry.
Well, I don't get to talk to those folks at Rapido. They're a pretty busy bunch.
That's for sure. Are they ever? Holy
But
mackerel!
I was fortunate to be invited down as a dealer, of course, to their annual open house in June for the barbecue,
Oh,
and I was there for the rollout of the RS18 announcement and the Tempo train in the RS11. So that was pretty exciting, and I feel it's a great privilege and an honor for me to be able to offer Rapido products to my clients, and it's exciting for me to see the RS18 coming to pass here next summer.
yeah, yeah.
It's
That's
going
going
to
to
be
be
awesome, or
cool.
spring, I guess.
A lot of it.
So there's a lot of potential for future announcements down the road. They didn't announce, CP rail chop noses, or there's other models they could potentially be doing. So I think they're going to get a good long run out of this RS18 tooling.
And they just did their first, not maybe their first, but they just did an American box car for Northern Pacific.
Two arrived yesterday for weathering for a client in Yellowknife. Yep.
Oh, you have a client in Yellowknife?
Yeah, very, very nice cars. Yes, I do.
Yes, beautiful cars. And you said, okay, so you tricked me again. You are going to wear me out, buddy. Also, you said Rochelle,
This,
Illinois. You have a
this,
customer in Rochelle, Illinois?
this is how I pay my bills. So I try to get customers from every corner of the globe here.
Well, maybe how you could pay your bills, but I need to. All the people that are listening to us right now, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of people. I have no
Okay.
idea, but it's in the
Well,
thousands easily. Uh,
oh, sure. Yeah.
they want to. They want me to be asking all these questions and
Well,
extracting all this information from you.
well,
So,
I
hang
can
on,
tell you.
hang
Yep.
on, hang on. I'm not. So Rochelle, Illinois, which of course is home to the Rochelle Railroad Park, and where we have our AML picnic. So you have a
Hmm.
customer right in Rochelle.
A new customer. Yeah, and the way he became a customer was really neat.
Okay.
He's been following me a little bit on Facebook, and a couple of friends of mine, Pete Kaiser, Bob Ballantyne, and Steve Cunneyworth, went down to Kansas City for the convention this summer. And when they were at the convention, they went on some layout tours. And one of the layout tours they went to was this client's father.
Oh,
So they were chatting, and Bob had mentioned that he's recently retired CN engineer, and my friend Steve Cunneyworth is still a serving CN engineer. And they said, oh, CN engineer, wow, where are you from? They said, we're from Alberta, Canada. And he said, oh, that's neat. And they said, we're from Edmonton. And he said, Edmonton? There's a guy up there that weathers trains. And they looked at each other, and the laughter started. And the new customer said, well, that was it. You were the topic of conversation for the rest of the visit. And because of that visit, he became a customer. And so I said to these guys, well, I guess I owe you guys a little bit of a referral bonus. So everybody's going to get a free medium locomotive weather job just for
cool.
promoting the brand, I guess, because I couldn't be down there. But I'm hoping to get to one of the large shows in the States here soon, just as a spectator, of course, but I'm dying to see it.
So these guys are just walking around talking to people, and they're getting free weathering jobs, and I got you on the air for hours and hours. I got nothing. I got bupkis.
I'm happy to do one.
I got bupkis.
All you have to do is ask.
All right, so
Very happy to do one.
let me get this straight. So I actually, when I had my layout, I actually enjoyed weathering. I got good enough at it that I actually didn't mind doing it. I wouldn't. My weathering doesn't even come close to yours, but what I did do was neat.
So the layout is dismantled?
Pretty much.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Well, it's a long story. It's. I stopped. I didn't use it for about a year, and then when I went back to it, you know what? It just got old. It's not that. It
Mm,
just got old. I started it in the early '80s, and Shinahara track, and this and that, and the next thing, and it just got old. So that's all.
mm.
Um, not enough. It's the hobby moves forward.
Yep.
And I love, and this is a lot like what I did with model railroaders. I love because I know I am helping to connect up, make the hobby grow. So that's cool
Oh
too.
yeah. And full disclosure, I don't have a layout.
There you go.
Lots of reasons for it. I'm going. I seem to be going in that direction with some help from friends, though.
Good.
So I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
And in the interest of full disclosure, back to the where your customers are, I can tell you I've got customers in most parts of Canada. The lion's share of my client base is actually in the United States.
I would think so.
I have customers. I have a new, strange, surprising new following in Mexico for some reason.
Mexico? Come on, give me a break, will you?
Yeah, well, I don't know what's going on there. I posted some prototype photographs I took at a trestle a couple weeks ago, and it got 22,000 views.
Whoa. You know what?
Yeah.
I try to be as honest as I can with this podcast. I try not to hide anything. Like I said, I screwed up the first podcast or the first this one because of the new audio software, and we got in a heated discussion about secrets, and I don't mind saying all that stuff on the air, and which leads me into this point. You are easily, I think, the most annoying person I've ever interviewed.
I get that a lot.
And not in a bad way. It's like you have all this cool. Now you're telling me about Mexico, and I'm like, wait a minute, we still haven't got back
Yeah,
to. We're still
I don't
stuck.
know.
I still don't know understand the guy in Rochelle. So his father had a layout in Kansas.
His in the area. His
Right,
father
right,
was,
and somewhere in Kansas City
yeah,
area.
and my three friends went on the layout tour, and they saw his layout.
So
And my customer was there,
okay,
obviously
helping his dad.
helping his dad with the tour, which is awesome.
And you're not going to tell me your
And
customer's name on the air, but you're going to tell me afterwards so I can
I can
contact.
I can tell you his name is Mike.
All right.
That's where I'll go.
Okay, his name is Mike, but later you're going
Yeah.
to help me get a hold of him so that we can interview him.
Sure.
Perfect. All right. So Mexico, that is cool. Now, you see where that's a whole
So
different.
yeah, but I
Don't
don't have any customers in Mexico. I just have a bit of a following,
a following
and I have customers in. I have a couple of customers in Germany, in Berlin.
and Poland.
I have one customer in Poland.
That's where we started fighting. Was when you
Yeah.
told me about the guy in Poland, and I wanted to know how you were finding these people. Now, but let's get back to the weathering of this brass model, where basically it looks like most of the paint is gone.
Right.
So if anybody goes to weathermytrains.com and you just go on the main page and scroll down, even if this comes out in the middle of, even if somebody's listening to this 2 years from now, they'll probably be able to find it in the sample gallery, right?
That's all they have to do. Click on sample galleries and click on CN. I don't know what the website's going to look like by the end of the year because GoDaddy has contacted me and said you're getting a lot of traffic, but I want you to know that the tool we have to update websites is no longer supported. So we're going to let you keep it as long as possible. But they said by the end of 2018, you're probably going to have to completely rebuild your website from scratch, which was lovely news.
Yeah,
I don't want to do that.
But you'll still put all the photos back up anyways.
I will. I have all the photos, and I've backed up on 2 drives. I have redundant drives, so I'll rebuild it.
So 2511, it's super faded to the point where the red or the orange, the CN orange, what do they call it, red or orange?
I've heard people refer to it as CN red orange because it's neither red nor orange.
Yeah,
it's a bit of both.
So, anyways, it's faded to the point where it's pinkish.
Well, my understanding, and I could be wrong, but my understanding is that over time the top coat has come off,
right,
leaving bare paint, and then the bare paint is now exposed to the elements, the wind and rain, and oil and washing from oil leaks and whatnot. And you got to remember, these locomotives were delivered at about 1996 or 95 or 96. So
So
this
yeah.
paint is old. This paint is 20 years old,
So how do you get it?
22 years old.
So what was the process to get it to look like this faded? Like was it is it just a matter of you keep slowly removing layers of paint or what?
No, no, I added paint.
Oh, okay, you added paint. Okay.
Yeah, I add pinkish orange. I paint it on.
What size brush are you using when you're doing that?
Uh, I I use a brush called a script liner. So it is a brush with very long bristles,
Right?
and I have to admit, uh, it's not an ideal brush for this job. It did frustrate me a little bit on this one. I might have used something else, but a script liner is basically it's a small paintbrush with maybe 100 bristles or 50 bristles, but the bristles are really long, about 3 centimeters or 2 inches long or so. So the idea there is you can load up a lot of paint in it, and it enables you to draw a long, thin line. So it takes a long time for the brush to run out of paint.
Ah, so so it's probably
It's
for
it's
the old sign painters would have used it.
yeah, it's almost like a pinstriping brush,
Okay.
but it's got a long handle.
Yeah, like that's interesting. That's interesting. Sorry, I cut you off there. That was
That's
very
fine.
rude of. That's very rude of me, and
Well,
I apologize. But I'm so interested in my own voice.
yeah, and I I don't always know what the right tool is for every job. There is always some experimentation, but that's fine.
So I was going to say that's kind of interesting though, because I think you're about 50, aren't you?
54.
54. So you're 10 years younger than me. So I mean, certainly in your lifetime, the original type of sign painting with just paint was still prevalent. And we've gone from that kind of sign making to where they do it with machines now and decals and all that, or decals.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
so the brush you're using is basically an old sign painter's brush.
Uh,
No?
I'm not sure if a sign painter would have used it. Sign painters, and there are still sign painters out there.
All right, time out,
Uh,
time out.
I think.
When you're doing this answer, try to make me look like, I at least have a slight idea. So,
Well, yeah, I don't know because I'm not a sign painter, but I think sign painters tended to use brushes called one-stroke brushes.
okay.
It's basically a flat paintbrush, but the bristles are really long. So it enables you to draw out the paint for a long distance, so you don't have to keep reloading the brush and you don't get a jagged line. So when you're lettering, the bristles might be an inch and
Right,
a half or three
right,
centimeters long, and then you load it up, and then you can make a good long stroke with the pen.
right,
It's almost like a calligraphy, but with a paintbrush, if you think of it that way.
right. And the brush you used on this locomotive, what would it be intended for originally, do you think?
It's just designed to enable you to draw long, thin lines in a
For
single stroke.
for an artist, because you buy most of
For
your.
an art, it's a fine art brush. Yeah, you buy
Yeah,
that at an art. You buy it at any art store, and it's called a script liner. And if you remember, maybe you've watched Bob Ross on PBS.
yes.
He used script liner brushes when he was painting his trees and his branches. That was a script liner brush.
Oh, okay. So there you go. And do you have the same kind of hair as Bob?
The exact opposite, Bob. In fact, my hair is very shiny.
You know what you should do is weather your head someday.
Yeah, I call it my temperature sensor.
Okay, so all right, so then you add paint, and then like do you do it a little bit at a time? Do you, like
Oh,
how long did it take you to do this engine from start to finish?
uh, I think it took a full day, and that says a lot because I work really fast. So there are thousands and thousands of brushstrokes on this model.
Right, because it's all individually hand done.
Yes, and it's all painted by hand around the windows I don't know
So
if you can see it from the
yeah,
pictures or not, but there's one photograph of 2511 where it sort of shows the front,
yeah.
and you can see above the cab windows, it's pink on the engineer's side, but it's not faded to pink on the conductor's side. All
Oh
that's
really?
painted by hand. Yeah. So you have to
Wow.
paint around the number board. I also painted around the window frames, and it takes a steady hand. So might want to cut it off at one cup of coffee when you start this job, or maybe none.
Right. And I know your pricing's right on the website, so that's not a secret. So you don't charge by the hour. You set a price, and then however long it takes you, that's how long it takes you.
Right. And if I screw it up and I have to redo it, then that's I have to eat the time. But in a case of something like this, I mean, I kind of refer to this as the piggy bank buster. There are a few jobs
Sure.
that are run up charge, and quite frankly, it's because they take twice as long as everything else. I don't charge twice as much, but I do. I don't have any. I have a clear conscience charging another 50 or 75 bucks above a heavy for something like that because that is a brutal amount of work.
Okay.
When I'm done with that, my shoulders are locked up.
Right. Exactly. And do you hold it in a cradle or something?
Uh, no, I will hold it in I will hold it in a gloved hand, or I will just sit it on its wheels, and I will paint it on the table.
Is it like on a stand on the table? Like do you have a wooden stand or something, or does
No,
it's
I don't, no, just put it on the table, and I use the table to steady my hand and
okay?
paint around the windows and everything with the script liner. You couldn't, it's pretty hard to paint around the window frames without something like a script liner.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
exactly.
there's other ways to do it, but I I'm kind of in some ways I'm lazy, and being lazy forces you to think through the artistic problem, so you can solve the problem without having to do too much work. But in the case of this thing, I'm out of ideas. I have to do it the old-fashioned way, so I do it, and I think the results are credible, passable. I know there are people that probably think that's overdone, but the day before I weathered that model, I was east of here, uh, doing some rail fanning with a friend of mine, a CN conductor from British Columbia, and we just photographed 2505 crossing a trestle, and it wasn't quite that bad, but it was up there.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. So you're not making any of this up. You're relying on
well,
prototype photos and stuff.
this particular model was weathered to prototype photos provided by the customer.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you're not just making any of it up.
No, this 2511 looks like this today,
right.
basically.
So if you're either relying on photos provided by the customer, or you're relying on photos you've taken yourself, or you're relying on photos you found on the internet.
Now, I could, in the case of a freight car, the guy will say just light, just a medium, just heavy, or he'll say it's a potash car, give me some streaks,
Right.
or give me some heavy streaks. Like, I'll make that up. It's just got to be believable for that type of lading. I don't go crazy. But if somebody sends me a car and they send me two pictures and they say I want that weathered car that way, that graffiti or whatever, I'll do it. But time is money, and if I spend a lot of extra time weathering a car to an exact specification provided by the customer, then I reserve the right to upcharge a bit. But I do make that well known right up front. I'll do this. It's going to cost this much money. Do you want me to do it, or do you want me to do it my way? And I give them a choice. I give them a choice. And really, we have that discussion before anything comes in the mail, so he knows what it's going to cost before it leaves his house. The biggest obstacle I have with this business is convincing people that you can send your model outside of your home country and nothing's going to happen. Nothing bad's going to happen. I just shipped $4,300 worth of brass to the United States, and the guy has that much confidence that nothing's going to happen, and it's not, because I ship express post, I ship insured for against loss, and I require a delivery signature upon confirmation.
Right.
So the post office is not allowed to put a box on your step.
Oh, I see. Without a
I
signature.
have to get that signature, and it has to be someone that's 18 years of age or older at that home. So it's a challenge sometimes to convince people that it's okay. And I'm also, people worry about customs, but they don't need to worry about customs. They need to be completely honest on their customs form. They need to say what's in that box and what it's worth. Because I have my GST HST number, and I also have an account with the Canada Customs folks. I am a licensed legal business to import and export product into and out of Canada,
Right.
and it's all tracked. It's all
Yeah.
above board. Nothing to worry about.
Exactly.
And
And
the reason there's nothing to worry about is because I have that license.
well, sure. And now you have a clientele, so I mean, you can even refer people to somebody else and say, "Well, I've done work for this." How many? How many? So you've been doing it now basically 2 years as a full time business.
Full time, part time for 5, as sort of a hobby, uh, but full time for 2 now.
Yeah. So let's go with that. So okay, let's even if you include the 5 years where you're doing it part time, and that probably grew and grew and grew until you thought, "I'm just going to do this full time." Do you have a rough idea of how many different individuals that you've dealt with?
Hmm. That's a good question.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
kind of it's.
if you've
I don't
done,
know. I haven't
hang,
counted them
hang
up,
on,
but it's
hang on, time out, time out.
hundreds. It's
Have there
hundreds.
has there been any of my questions that you didn't feel were good?
Oh no, that's no,
Okay,
no.
okay. I
That's a
just
good one.
think felt
That's a
like we
dilly.
needed to clear that up
But
because
that's not data I keep at my fingertips. And
okay.
quite frankly, I really scare myself to know. But I think it's hundreds.
Well, it
I
must be
don't.
hundreds. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, maybe 1,000. I don't know.
Well, there you
It's
go.
there's I have customers in most American states at this point,
Yeah.
and I have a couple of customers in Australia too, and I had one in New Zealand, although I haven't heard from them in a while. Couple in
Switzerland.
Germany, couple in Switzerland, couple in Germany. New customer in London, which is where the blue um, 2457 went that I was working on about a month ago. There, the
All right.
blue CNIC
And, and Poland.
840CW.
Poland. That got me excited.
Poland, yeah, got some scale trains, C39-8s. So that was a different one because he didn't order them from me. He ordered them directly from Scale Trains. But what he did was he ordered them from Scale Trains, and when you place an order with a company, you provide your mailing address, and then there's also a shipping address. And most of the time, the shipping address is the same as the mailing address. But in this case, he said, "What do I do?" And I said, "Well, you just fill in the shipping address is my address. So the billing address is a home address in Poland, and the shipping address is Weather My Trains."
Yeah.
So, they just pick the order, they print a label from the shipping address, slap it on, and send it to me. It doesn't hurt that they already have my data because I'm a Scale Trains dealer, so that helps.
Yeah.
But
Well.
for those brands that I'm unfortunately not a dealer for, that always works.
Right. And you're working on that. So, you are a dealer or you're not a dealer for scale trains? I forget.
I am.
Okay. All right, I want to go see now. I'm looking at your pricing here, and so okay, so heavy weathering, which is your specialty, it says, from 175. So it's quoted on request. So
Mhm.
in this particular locomotive, 2511, that's weathered absolutely having the living crap weathered out of it.
Yep.
So did the fella contacts you and then sends you like he says, I got 2511 and I want it weathered the way it is now, or I have
He,
photos, or what happened there?
he's a regular customer.
Okay.
He's a good customer. Um, he sent me. He said I have four overland brass models I want done. I hadn't heard from him in a little while, so it was a pleasant surprise to hear from him again. And he said I want these 4 done. I said okay, and he said basically he knows what I need, and my inputs are 2 photographs minimum, I guess,
Minimum.
per locomotive. So he gives me a shot of each side, and he says, "Can you do that?" And I say, "Yeah." And I give him a price. I just look at them quickly and say, "Okay, medium, medium, heavy, heavy," and that one is an extra heavy because that's a cab fading. So I threw a little bit more money in the pot for myself because I knew it was going to take a lot more time, and he didn't have a problem with it. So
Yeah, and of
you
course,
know,
I mean, you can find images of 2511 online, but not necessarily in the condition that he wants it weathered to.
but he did.
He
He
did.
he found he found the photographs and he sent me a Facebook private message. And of course, I look at the photographs and I assess how much work I think that's going to be, and then I give him a quotation.
Right.
And he thought the quotation was fair.
And
Um,
did it turn out to be harder than you thought, or was it about
yeah,
what you thought it was going to be?
no, it was a bit harder than I thought, but that's
Okay.
okay. I'm not going to upcharge because
No, no, no.
I'm too dumb to get my quote right.
Well,
I
yeah, but it's not a case of that. It's not really a case of that. It's a case of, like you said, boy, I'm going to beat you like a rented mule. I'm telling you right now.
yeah, yeah.
I am just going to beat you
Sure you
like
are.
I am just
You
going to
don't
beat.
even have my address, Lionel. You
I'll,
can't touch me, pal.
I am just going to. I'm going to beat you like a rented mule. I'm going to beat you like a redheaded stepchild. So okay, so then yeah, so he sends you a couple of photos. You figure it's going to take you this long, and it takes you a little longer, but you don't change your price because, and then
Nope.
you learn a whole lot of stuff in the process.
Yeah, and it really wasn't that much
No,
more effort. Maybe another hour or two, and he's a good customer. I get good energy from him. He's happy. He sent me a message today. He said they're here. He's very happy.
yeah,
That's great, and I like that closure when I hear from the customer. Most customers don't let me know that they got the model, or they don't tell me their impressions when it comes home, but some of them do, and I like that because it gives me closure. It helps me understand that they got the model in a timely fashion, so Canada Post didn't let me down, and the model, has met, or sometimes they tell me it exceeds their expectations.
yeah,
So
for
it makes
sure.
me, it gives me energy, and I use that energy to keep going.
Well, and it's no different than the podcast. Some people get involved and get engaged with the podcast and send emails and messages, and some people just enjoy listening to it. Not everybody's going to interact, but lots of people are listening.
My only problem with your podcast is they don't come out often enough because I I check literally every time I weather. First thing I do in the morning is I check moderslife.com.
Well, it comes out twice a week, so just settle down.
Don't make me beat you with a wet noodle.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
We want more.
I was doing it 3 times a week, but I found that it was starting to not be fun at three
That's right.
times a week, and I wanted to keep it where it was a fun thing to do, and I would
That's
be able
right.
to maintain a certain pace. So 2 times a
That's
week
right.
seems to be perfect.
That's right. Because if you do it too much and it becomes a job and you start questioning your own sanity, and next thing you're not doing it anymore, and we all lose out. We don't want that. So if you give us 2 podcasts a week, I'm happy with that.
Well, and the best part is, over the years, people are going to get to hear me just beat on you and get all this information out here.
That's right.
See,
That's right.
look at tonight. We're killed an hour and 15 already, and we're not even. We'll talk a little bit more, but it's very. And we only really concentrated on one locomotive, but so I think it's interesting. So that one took you a whole day, basically. Now, would you work on that one straight through, or would you be
Yep.
like, really?
Oh no, sit down and do it. Yep. I might stop if I get hungry. I'll stop for lunch, but no, I don't stop until I'm done.
What's a typical lunch for Rob Arsenault?
Well,
What'd you have
of course,
today? What did you have today?
today. Oh, Christina treated me today. I got a hamburger today. We were out doing some errands, so we treated ourselves to a burger and fries, which is the exception rather than the rule around here.
And where did you stop?
It was her choice today, so
Well, that's
she
fine.
she picked Burger King.
All
Uh,
right. Well, that's cool. You went to Burger King, so that's so every day Rob goes to Burger King for lunch.
but my favorite hamburger is Carl's Jr. Oh,
Carl's Jr.
I love Carl's Jr.
I
I
don't
don't
think
know why.
I think that's a Western thing, Western
Well,
Canada.
they come up from the States. Yeah, I don't know where they are exactly, but and I love Popeye's fried chicken. Oh boy,
Oh yeah, that's dangerous stuff right there. Yeah,
yeah.
that's that puts on the pounds, no problem.
Oh yeah. No, I've been pretty good. It's a treat. It's a treat.
Do you have a favorite thing that you've like? Do you have and all the stuff? Man, you must have weathered a ton of stuff by now.
That's up there. Yeah.
Okay, well, all right. So say you're doing say the guy does send you 16 covered hoppers, and you
hmm
want them to all basically look roughly the same. So there's no you can't start. I didn't start here and finish there.
hmm
So would that take you how long would it take you to weather a car? Just a medium weathering job on a car.
Probably a couple hours. I'm not sure. I did the 16 cars before the graffiti was on. I think it took me 2 days
All right.
to weather all 16 cars. 2.5 days to do all 16.
And do you give is there a discount because he has so many cars, or you just charge him per?
No, no, I gave a discount. I think. Hmm, I guarantee. It's maybe it's cheesy, but if you look at the weathering promotions page, which doesn't seem to be there. Oh, there it is. I call it the 415 deal. Send 4 or more items at once and get 15% off weathering.
Okay.
Max 12 items per shipment. That I gave him a little bit of a sweeter deal on that one because he's a new customer and they came from such a long distance.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
So
That just
I'm
blows.
sensitive to the fact that shipment postage is expensive. So I might
Yeah,
be, I might be willing to work a little bit more with the customer. If it means losing the customer because of postage, I might be willing to work with the customer a little bit,
that
get a
just
little bit of discount.
that just
Try.
that just blows me away. I'm sorry. I know you're not. It's not. That just blows me away that people from Switzerland and England and Australia have tracked you down and are sending their stuff to you. Like that's gotta make you feel good.
It does. I think a lot of it boils down to the fact that I'm a foamer too. So, I foam at
Ah,
the mouth like everybody else when I see trains, and I understand their passion. They
yeah.
don't have to explain their headspace to me.
Well, then
You know,
explain it to me. What is the fascination with trains?
I wish I knew.
Yeah.
I honestly wish I knew. I remember recently hearing someone say that they were bitten by the train bug when they were very young, and it grabbed hold of them, and they felt it change them, and it stayed with them from when they were young. I'm talking 4 or 5 years old, and that's what happened in my case.
Yeah.
I was about 5 years old in PEI, and I would watch our GE 70 tonners and RSC 13s, and then later, because I lived in the western end of the island, we had RSC. Well, I guess some people call them RSC 14s, RSC 18s, RS 18Ms, whatever, MR 14Bs. Basically, a retrucked RS 18.
Yeah.
And I watched these things when I was young. Every couple of days, they'd go up to CFP Summerside to take coal, and then later oil for the physical plant to heat the base.
Right.
And of course, seemingly endless streams of strings of 40-foot reefer cars. Before the days of mechanical reefers, they had ice in them. MDT, Illinois Central, Santa Fe, and CN refrigerator cars,
Sure.
friction bearing trucks. It's cool stuff.
And you do both HON scale and you do some O scale? You said.
I haven't done any yet. I've done some G scale, G scale as well. Excuse me. My customer in Rochelle indicated today that he was putting a box together and he wanted to send me some O scale brass.
Yeah.
So
That'll
that'll
be
be
pretty.
interesting.
That'll be pretty cool.
I'm going to have to get myself a piece of O scale track.
You're gonna have to get
Sit
yourself.
that on.
Okay, so now see you left that little piece, that little gem out of this. So there's the model sits on a piece of track on your desk.
Well, I use a piece of track to clean the wheels.
Okay.
So
Yeah, but I mean, when you're doing the weathering though, does it sit on a piece of track?
Oh no, no, it
No.
would roll away. Can't do that.
Oh, really?
I have a little test track that I use to
Okay.
clean the wheels on the locomotive. So I have a
Is that some
TCC system, and then I
right?
spark up the locomotive to clean the wheels and whatnot. Paint the wheels.
Okay, and so that's every locomotive you send away. Before you send away, you got to clean the wheels because obviously
Mhm.
paint gets on the wheels.
A little bit.
And what's your trick for cleaning wheels?
I just it's not a trick. It's the same thing I think most people do. I just run it on a piece of track with some paper towel or a work towel soaked in isopropyl alcohol.
Yeah, isopropyl. That's like what's the other word name for that? That's just like
Isopropanol.
it's a rubbing alcohol, or like, isn't it? Or what is it?
Yeah. Yep.
You
Yep.
buy it at the drugstore.
That's right. I buy mine at Costco because I go through a lot.
Do they
So
sell it there?
yeah, they sell 99% pure isopropyl at the pharmacy section of
I
Costco.
didn't know that. See, there's
And they
another gem.
sell,
See, I'm
yeah,
telling you,
well,
you are
that's
just
where you go, and
you.
they sell four bottles in a package. It's great.
All right. Another question I was going to ask you is how many brushes do you go through?
Oh, paintbrushes?
Yeah, I bet you're buying them in bulk.
I am. I buy them by the handful. Paintbrushes are only last. Well, we're talking fine art paintbrush for a painting for your wall.
Yeah.
They only last about 3 to 5 paintings if you take care of them. Paintbrush for a model train, sometimes 1 or 2 models. It goes in the garbage.
Yeah. Is it kind of? Are they kind of like like a box knife where once the blade goes dull, that's it. There's no point in going on.
Yeah, yep. Because well, I mean, you can. Some people cut them down and they use them stipple-on weathering effects. I don't do that, but some people do, and it's a perfectly valid approach to the problem.
Or we don't care about other people.
Well, I don't want to necessarily knock other people's techniques. It's valid.
Well, we're
And
not talking.
it's a clever way to do it.
We're not talking about other people's techniques. We're talking about your techniques.
Sure. Well, the paintbrush typically will last 2 or 3 models, and that's it. But
And
the people at the art store know me very well. They do
yeah.
special orders for me now, and I'm pretty much on speed dial.
So now that's an interesting thing. I don't want to. That's an interesting question I have in my head. So, is it like you'll be painting and all of a sudden, you'll go, well, this brush is done,
Yeah,
and
straight in the trash. Grab a next one.
right, yeah, and do you try to figure that out? Like as soon as it's done, you just like boom, it's gone.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, no,
The paintbrushes they come with like a sizing on them. They're formed to come to a point in most cases. And after the paintbrush gets used, especially if there's water goes up in the ferrule, which is the metal part that holds the bristles together, once water goes up in there, the paintbrush becomes unusable pretty fast. After you use a paintbrush a couple of times, the bristles will start to splay out and spread out a little bit. That's when you know it's no longer useful for its intended purpose.
well, there you go. So that's something I learned right there about water goes up into the ferrule.
Yep, yep, and that's really bad. You don't want your paint to go up into the ferrule or water.
No, you don't want to go up into the ferrule.
I'm sloppy, so it happens all the time. But don't do what I do. Do what I say.
And what kind of paint are you using? Acrylic paint, any particular brand, or just artistic acrylic?
I use a professional fine art acrylic. Um, I tend to stay away from the craft paint that you see at craft stores, and well, the stuff at the craft stores is, to quite be honest with you, if you're only going to use a little bit, it's fine. But if you're going to use it a lot, then it's overpriced for what you're going to pay for the amount of paint you're going to go through. It's much more effective to buy bigger quantities of paint at an art store. And I'm a big proponent of supporting an art store because all they sell is paint. They don't sell craft supplies. So that's kind of where my headspace is. And when we talk about bargain basement, dollar store type acrylic paint,
Yeah.
I definitely would not recommend that on a fine scale model that you plan on having for a long period of time. I know there are people who disagree with me on that, and that's perfectly fine. I will not use that kind of paint. I only use professional products on my clients' models.
And does it come in a tube or what is it coming?
It comes in a bottle.
And
The
how much?
stuff I use, you can use it's called a fluid acrylic. Comes in a bottle, and then you mix it with airbrush medium to make it airbrushable.
And how often do you use airbrush?
About 10 hours a day.
Okay, but you're also using a bristle brush too.
Uh, I use a bristle brush.
Well, you're not lying to
No,
me, are you?
no.
Okay.
I use a bristle brush when I'm painting heavy rust effects or fading cab.
Right.
But sometimes I'll spray that too. Sometimes I'll just mask off the windows and spray that.
Okay, so going back to 2511 because
Mm-hmm.
that was our subject, our topic today.
Mm-hmm.
How much of it is brush and how much of it is airbrush?
Uh, the cab is brushed,
Okay.
and I think the stack is brushed rust.
And then the rest of it is airbrushed.
Yes. I mean, you got your fuel spills and whatnot. That's always put on with a brush.
Right.
But most of the airbrushing of the rust around the plow pilot and the trucks, the dirt, the brown around the trucks. There's a little bit of a burn mark up there on the roof.
Yeah.
Rusty spots on the cab.
It's a combination. It's primarily airbrush, but it's a combination of airbrushing and hand brushing.
On these heavy ones, it is,
Yeah,
because it's kind of complex. But most of the time, I use my trusty
airbrush.
Airbrush.
I have a friend that's a custom painter of motorcycles and helmets and all that stuff. And man, I'm always what's the word? I need a word. I'm always amazed. It's a better word than amazed. What the artists, these airbrush artists can do. That is a real art, isn't it?
It is, and I'm in awe of these guys that do this stuff too. I can watch them all day, and that kind of painting requires a different mindset completely than what we're doing here on model railroading. But I do watch a few videos from time to time on their approaches to artistic problems to see if there's anything that I can migrate over to my benefit.
Yeah.
To try and keep a competitive edge, if nothing else, because there's a lot of people out there doing this. So I want to be able to offer a product that is consistently high quality at a good price, and hopefully keep people coming back.
Okay, so now I'm on your testimonial page, which is really cool. Got my Conrail SD40-60 and my Jeep 38 that looks great today. Indiana, USA. It looks awesome. I just wanted the spirit of that captured, which you have totally done beautifully. They have arrived and look tops. That's from New South Wales, Australia.
Yeah.
And here's one. Hi, Rob. All cars unboxed now, and I'm one happy guy. Great work. Thank you, from England. And it just goes on and on and on and on. All this.
It feels good to get those.
Absolutely.
Makes me happy. It feels like I'm hitting the target, without that feedback, I don't know how happy the guy is. I don't know what his propensity is to come back. And it's important that I bring him back. Right. I'm trying to give people a warning now that if you do hire me to do some work, that I want people to realize that I'm going to do everything I can to make your models look so good that you're going to want to come right back.
Exactly. And here's a guy from it has arrived, and what a beauty the model is. Well worth the wait. Great work. Wishing you a wonderful Christmas and a happy New Year. A customer from Berlin, Germany.
Yes, yeah, and actually one customer that I did that 2511 for actually sent me a Christmas gift one year. He sent me some nice scale trains, tank cars for Christmas. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah. Well, here's a good one. Your modeling is awesome. You're one of the best weatherers I've ever seen, but interviewing you is a pain in the butt. Somewhere in a podcast guy.
I don't see that one, but I think it's going up there tomorrow.
All right. Well, I think we see now. Oh, look at this. Here's one. The best weathering guru in the country, bar none. Professional railroader, locomotive engineer.
That's a guy with 37 or so years, just retired from CN out of Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Here's another one. Absolutely spot on. Can't tell the model from the big one. Superb work. Amazing attention to detail. Short line locomotive engineer in Pennsylvania, USA.
Yes. Yes. He works for the WCOR. That's an outfit that bought some SD40-2s that were formerly used on the Quebec North Shore and Labrador Railroad, and they still retain the QNS&L paint job.
There you go. Here's another one. Amazing work. The engine runs and sounds absolutely fantastic. Great customer support and well worth the money. Definitely won't see the last of me. Bear Bryant, Alabama, USA.
Yeah, Alabama.
Do you know who Bear Bryant is?
I do not, but that was not this customer.
Oh, my goodness gracious. He was like the football coach of all time for Alabama University.
Okay.
And he wore what do you call those hats? Those fedoras where the...
Fedora?
Awesome. Yeah, houndstooth. Where it was So
Yeah, just like my father.
oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's it. I think we've. Let's see,
Okay.
how long have we done? An hour and a half.
Not bad.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So this is not going to be an episode. This is what I call just this is between episodes because I'm only going to do 2 episodes a month, which are numbered, which is the
Okay.
original show, and this is just us talking and me checking in with you. I call these more. I call this like checking in.
Okay.
We're checking in with Rob.
Pulse check with Lionel.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's checking in. We're checking in on Rob today, see if he's still going to annoy the crap out of me.
Is that guy still alive? I should
Yeah,
call him.
yeah. Whatever happened to that guy?
Jump off a bridge yet? No,
Yeah,
not yet.
exactly. Did we cover any of your topics that you'd written down,
Well,
or did
the
you
one
write?
thing we did. Well, the one thing we didn't mention was the fact that I got married in May.
Yes, let's not.
That was the happiest day of my life.
Okay, excellent. And the bride's name is
Christina.
Christina.
Yeah, she was my high school sweetheart, and we made it work, but it was a topsy-turvy relationship for a couple of years, and we broke up for good and married other people, and 13 years later both marriages failed, and somehow we found each other on the internet after that, and
Well, that's
started
cool.
chatting, and next thing you know, we're an item, and yeah, we decided to formalize it all.
And was she lived in Prince Edward Island as well when you were in high school, I guess, eh?
Yes, yeah, we went to high school together.
Oh, wow. That's a lovely story.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm really fortunate to have that second chance.
I can sense that. You were telling me about that before, and I think that's really, really cool. That's what I like about this podcast. That's what I like about doing it. I don't just talk about trains. I talk about the people in the hobby and their lives, and I think that makes it that much more interesting.
And every time we go out for breakfast or whatever, often one of the servers will say, "No," she'll come over and she'll say, "I have to ask this. But are you guys like this all the time?"
Oh, yeah.
Yep, all the time.
Well, that's kind of similar to my question. Are you this annoying all the time?
Every day, all day long. Ask anybody.
You're a good guy. You're a good guy.
You gotta link up with Norman Stretting.
I do. Yes, you sent me his. Yeah, you said. And did you warn him about me, or what was the deal?
He's totally interested.
Totally
interested, and he did 20 plus years on Canadian National as a rail. Well, I guess refers to himself as a dispatcher on the Clearwater subdivision in British Columbia, and now he has an outstanding HO scale layout in a little place called New Normandy. New Normandy, right? New Norway,
right?
About an hour from here, and I'm fortunate to be invited regularly to operate his layout, and I love every second of it.
So has he ever listened to the podcast?
Can't say. I know I mentioned it to him about 2 or 3 weeks ago that this might be an opportunity for him, and he's all for it. And he's a super guy, loves trains, loves CN, And,
all right.
He'll be a great asset to your podcast, in my view, anyway.
All right. Well, then we'll work on that. And you keep reminding me. If you don't hear him, then keep reminding me. Feel free to keep reminding me. Okay.
Absolutely.
So now what we have to do is tell everybody, because this is going to be one of the free podcasts, we're going to have to tell everybody that if you want to converse with us, if you want to get a hold of us through the magic of electronic email, through the digital wires, through the magic of Wi-Fi, through the magic of the intranet, you can email us at modeler'slife. That's modelers with one L like Lionel. No, that's one L like railroad and two L's like Lionel. Hang on a minute. I don't usually do this part. Let me try again.
I miss Bruce.
Yeah, me too. It's modeler'slife with at gmail. Okay, I got it now. Hang on, I got it now. It's modelerslife@gmail.com. That's modelers with one L like railroad, not two L's like Cadillac.
Perfect.
There, I got it. It took me a while, but I got it. And we have a website. If you go to modelerslife.com, you can see what episodes and shows there have been. There's some links to how to download the podcast. There's a page about all the people that are on the podcast. And I think that's it. I think we've covered it all.
Super.
And
But
we leave with we do now have a new thing that we're pretty excited about.
okay.
We've recently discovered, and we only recently discovered this, but we've recently discovered that a modeler's life is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10 doctors.
That's right. Perfect. That sounds about right.
Yeah. Say goodbye, Rob.
Goodbye, Rob.
It's another Lincoln Homer.